Hello YouTube vintage stereo restorers and those that like integrated amps who are less likely to have a receiver but a separate tuner and amp or a separate preamp and an amp. But this is one from the mid 80s and this is the, I don't know what the word is, the irony or conundrum of all this is I used to sell these. I was actually working in the shop, doing car stereo installs, repairs, working on other stereo components, car alarms, cell phones, EEPROM burning, all that kind of stuff. And look at these came out, I believe the original series goes back to 79, and these were out till about 85, 86. And we called these the Luxman Champagne series. And if you look at the metal faceplate, it's not silver, it's not gold, it's something in between. It's like the color of champagne. And these actually, they didn't sell in any kind of the quantity like for instance Techniques did, because they were quite a bit more expensive. This is the L210, so this is sort of middle lineup. It's 50 watts per channel. And these were popular amongst stereo connoisseurs for a couple of reasons. One is the number of switches and options, subsonic filter on the phono. They also had the two tape decks, great dubbing capabilities, a high cut filter, low cut filter, tone, defeat. Some very similar options to Yamaha, and they were this color. Okay, when so much of the other stuff, picture 1984, for instance, NAD had some great components out. 7020, I think, was the first one we sold. Plastic faceplate. The Techniques, Sherwoods, the Akai's, they're going to plastic faceplates. And they just had, and even the Marantz stuff was going very plasticky, a lot of streamlined stuff. And not saying it was all bad, but this was still a full-size, metal-fronted amplifier. And at the time, I was pretty impressed because when the store wasn't busy and the shop wasn't busy, we listened to the equipment. And this series impressed me. It was the last. Luxman came out with a couple units later. They went to a black metal faceplate. Still pretty good in construction. And there's the Bridge series of amps that had, I believe it was two 12A7s or two 12AU7s in the preamp circuit that were right here. All of them were pretty expensive. But in general, these were the last old school Luxmans, although they had lots of Alpine parts, and Alpine had bought them around that time. The stuff that started to come out, like what was it? The LV101 was an integrate M, bottom of the line. Well, these were around $400 or $500, if I remember. Their stuff that came out was cheaper, and in every way. Now, Luxman has been rebirthed and is making some fantastic separate components now. But I'm talking about this era. And I want to talk about the construction of it. Let's see if we can just bring it around a bit here. I took the lid and the bottom off of it because it was a little bit dusty and I wanted to get it cleaned out before I brought it in, because I have a problem with dust. Just a bit of dust in the air, I start sneezing here. Sometimes I sneeze 5 or 6 times, and then I go looking for my teeth and my eyeballs. They're around here somewhere. That's how hard I sneeze with dust. I have problems with dust and with asthma. So I blow them out in the garage, at the front of the garage. And anyway, so this blew out pretty good, looks pretty good. It is more modern construction. Somebody's forced the wrong kind of bulb into this opening. Use some ugly glue on it. Good transformer, really good transformer. 10,000 microfarad caps. This does not have a protection relay. It has some fused protection. And the ones that did have protection circuits and relays were a bit problematic, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This whole dual beta circuit that they used, it was basically trying to get as many capacitors out of the design as possible. And if you look, there's not that many electrolytics in it compared to some others that were just a few years before. Instead, you actually have LEDs as coupling to couple between stages. So you see the LEDs flickering when they're on. This model only has a few. Some of the others, like the L430 and L410, which were the 100-watt versions, and they really kicked. I owned one. The L430, they used the dual beta circuit in the phono stage. This just uses an op amp and caps and resistors. But one of the problems with the dual beta circuit is response was like DC to 100,000 because of direct coupling. They were also prone to some really wild feedback. And I remember mine going into protection mode. I was maybe 4 on the dial, hardly even pushing my L430. And I was listening to LPs through an SL1200, which is a rock solid turntable, and it was still feeding back subsonically. So you had to use the low cut filter, which basically took all the nice chunky bass away. So that was kind of I found that one, it was often the protection light, which was here on the L430, would come on while you're listening, and then one day I took the cover off my speaker, and the 2 woofers were just cycling, like going, I'm counting, it was about like 10 hertz. They're actually picking up the rumble or some component from the turntable. And the interesting thing is, that series also, it would pick up, even if you're using like a CD player, it was almost microphonically sensitive. But the sound, that was one thing, they really had great sound. Towards the neutral side of things, not as warm as a capacitor coupled amp, but these you could push them right to their power rating and they were clean. Sort of like a lot of the NAD stuff. Anyway, let's look at this one. What's up front here is nothing unusual. A board for the tone, a board for the volume control. I hope the controls, I'm going to plug it in a second. It has transformer here. So the power amp and part of the preamp and the phono preamp are here. You already see cost cutting measures using less boards and less handwork. I turn this around. I look at the back and I go, oh, mismatched output transistors. So I believe this side is the original because it has an 1104. Okay, my batteries ran out, but we'll continue on. There's some soldering repair here. These were, there's a Zener diode here that got really hot. It was usually the first thing to go on these. And these being, at the time, relatively higher powered units, especially when you got into the bigger powered units, the 80 and 100 watt per channel ones, some of the components just couldn't take being pushed, especially if you were getting subsonic oscillation coming through it. Yeah, so I'm going to have to figure out which. I was just looking at the schematic. These two are original. These two have been replaced, and I think quite a while ago, judging by how hard the silicon grease is. And you never know, it could have been me at the Luxman dealer. Because some came in, I don't know what it is, people like to buy these and absolutely thrash them. That was just something loud rock, loud jazz, even some of the people that listen to classical really cranked it. And many of them came back early with blown outputs. And we sometimes couldn't get the transistors we'd get out of them, but that's another story. Yeah, so I'm going to try this one out. I'm going to plug it in. with some headphones. Broke the elastic, one in my eye. Okay. Well, let's just bring it here. I know you can't see the whole unit. I'm just going to bring it around this way, put on the headphones. Make sure the volume's down. And let's turn it on. Wow, the lights flickered and nothing's happening. I turned it on, the switch is not grabbing well. Yeah, I don't think we have much happening here. Let me pull the camera back so you can see more. We can do a little analysis. The lights dimmed for a second, and I know some people say, oh, you should use a dim bulb tester. No. Yeah, so the main fuse is here. I just unplugged it, let's meter across it. Now, it didn't blow a fuse. This power switch does not have a good feel. Yeah, I don't like the feel of that. Let's see if it's actually just going across the blades of the power cord. So the power switch is off. There's load there. Okay, well let's try powering up again. I think that switch, some of these Alps power switches, especially if they've been turned off and on a lot, go bad. Oh, it just powered up. It's this switch. See the diodes came on? No. Yeah, in the phono mode, if I turn it up, I have static. Yeah, I'm not going to put a source on it now. Let's just see. Let's bring it around. There's our output transistors. Nothing's overheating, so none of them are blown to a short. I am just going to look for voltage here. It actually sounds like it's working. It was sold as is. So, 42. Should be negative there. Okay. And negative there. So we have power supply voltage, no problem. I think the bias is off. That pair is running too warm. Let's go back here. I'm just going to show you. This Zener diode here, yeah, that's been replaced. I have to look up the part number. We used to go to a heavier duty one. Let's just take a quick voltage reading on that, make sure it's working. It should be at this end. It's 25 volts. Okay. So that is working. Yeah. Actually, the controls, nothing's staticky, which is nice. Selector switch is smooth. Okay, so I think this, if I put a source to this, I think it actually gets sound. But I'm going to turn it off and check out and make sure those power transistors are a good match. If they are, I might leave them. I'm just going to go through here, try each source. I might recap. There's not many caps in here. Definitely these two. Definitely these two. Anyway, that's just a preliminary run through on this. What I'll do is I'm going to take the power switch out and show you how to fix one of these if you can't find a replacement. It's the same power switch. It's in a lot of units, in Kenwoods, in Sherwoods, in Morances, in NADs. You'll know it when you see it. Thanks for watching and listening.